Hello, Twitch. Running just a couple of minutes behind because we've got some challenges with the camera. So I am working on this to see if we can't, there we go, get it aligned. I was hoping to have that solved before I started the show, but alas, I was having some technical difficulties. So if you're just joining, this is Green Oaks Gaming's channel, and we are here on a Monday night to talk a little bit about the journey in RPGs and really exploring kind of the locations, the peoples, the traditions, the settings of our RPGs. So that is the goal of today's show. Every Monday night we did update our schedule. Instead of 8 to 9 Central Standard Time, we have moved that to 6:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 to 7:30. And really the show itself is all about, again, this show is all about discovering locations and exploring the realms that we base our RPGs in. And this show we primarily talk about more world building, but the concepts that we're going to discuss and cover and talk about really apply to all genres and all different types of RPGs. So I'm going to change the screens around here a little bit and minimize myself if I can a little bit, because we're going to be focusing a lot on the bigger screen. And just getting some of the notes that we had covered on the last show, speaking about Deutschland and really talking about how our next campaign is going to be centered on this island. We had written down some good bits focusing on the landscape that has 3 different areas to it, and really the big pieces that we want to cover from when I last used this location setting, which was 3rd edition, bringing it to what in my game is the 5th age, which is the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. So we haven't touched this for a long time, and now we get to explore it from a newer perspective. And if you haven't seen the last video, it is available on YouTube. When this video ports into YouTube, I will try to make sure that I link them together. However, I am a little old, so I may not completely remember it. So don't hesitate to check it out. But Deutschland, we know, had been in the 3rd age extremely prosperous and justly ruled in the 2nd age. By the 4th age, chaos ensued, and the selfish and despondent heroes, which was the campaign, the party that I ran in 3rd edition, they overtook the lands for their own gains and pleasures. So we know we're going to have a hook, we need to get some integration, and we want to explore the landscape and the personas. We started that looking at the landscape. There are 3 kind of land masses. With the upheaval, moving from the 4th age to the 5th age, we can already start to deduce that how that change of the ages has hit that area. Some of the important parts to think about that is the dragon graveyard, the areas of mountains resembling melted wax, heavily forested plateaus, and deep lush valleys. Most travel is via boat or flying creature. So we did decide we want to have the troops fly on some type of a monster. And then the lower element, the southernmost area of Deutschland, has more fantastical elements, so riddled with mile-high badlands. Building and cities are clinging to the rock surface and features. It's arid but cold, wildlife dominating the landscape, so it's larger, deadlier, windswept. So there are select hot springs that are treated like oases and prized and used by royalty for leverage. So looking at those three areas, and knowing already the type of campaign, I've already got the story elements done. I know that we're going to focus the largest parts of the campaign are going to focus on the more northern areas because of the people of the upper two like continental areas have banded together via treaties. And with this story, that is going to bring it in. That's how the characters are going to be introduced into the campaign story. Is there are royal house has been in a little bit of very recent upheaval, so there are some political dynamics going on, and they are seeking out heroes to help in solving a couple of things that have been kind of plaguing them now for a little bit of time, and things that will have happened in the previous campaign kind of bleed over into it. So we know we're going to be on the upper land masses, and very much that volcanic rim kind of area as the focus point. So focusing on that upper land mass, so the upper rim, on this. In the story, the way that I wrote it, there are two real kind of powerful, let's say they are, the best way to put it is the heirs to the throne. So in the story that I've written for the backbone, the recent ruler has died, and there is a duchess and a duke. They are cousins. They've been so far tasked to keep the house's name, reputation, and power in the event that the heir couldn't come to power. Now, it just so happens that when the ruler died, they actually did not have an heir. So the Duchess and the Duke, who are cousins, are the basically the niece and nephew on different sides of the family, and as such are kind of looked to as the de facto rulers. However, because the Duchess is the king's niece and the Duke is the queen's nephew, who is going to rule? Now, one could say that in fantastical times, certainly medieval times, the cousins would marry and rule. We don't roll that way. So these two here are considering a co-joint rulership. Part of the reason they're talking about that is because they know that they're going to be stronger together, they're going to have less infighting, and the counselors for the family are also looking for control. What better way for the counselors to gain some governmental control than by helping the Duchess and the Duke work together to rule jointly? So it makes a lot of sense. That's where the political intrigue on this comes in. And while that's part of the overarching story, is the players to kind of navigate the political atmosphere, thus utilizing any of the players who are using charisma type characters who want to have noble type backgrounds, titles. You can intertwine those elements into this story arc. So I'm already trying to think of the different types of characters that my players will bring in. There's nothing worse than creating a good, charismatic, kind of face character and only dungeon delving. It does not allow that character to shine the way something like this could. With that being said, if you're building a straight martial fighting type of character, you may not have any type of fun navigating this political atmosphere. So it is a balancing act. I try to put as many opportunities for the characters' party group to explore the elements of the story they want to. Now let's say none of them have charismatic characters who are trying to navigate and understand this political. All we do is not focus on it. That's why in our prep work we're not going to put a whole ton of meat onto these bones. We're just laying out bones. Anytime we're creating campaigns and putting some of the prep work in elements in so that we have a good landscape to describe to the player characters, we want to build bones, but we don't want to flesh them out, because we can always flesh them out if the players show interest from their characters participating in those breadcrumbs we lay. So we've already gotten established a bit of political intrigue with important characters such as the Duchess, the Duke, and counselors. Let's say the counselors, there are going to be 5 counselors. And they represent the government's interests. And those include money, diplomacy, let's say the Navy, because they are surrounded by water. A Navy would definitely be important. Troops or infantry. So the military aspect, but not water-based, so we could have those two separate. Pardon me. We may combine those though, because we've already got 3 there. So let's say the food stocks and religion. Those are what the government are most interested in. And why? Because some of those are all about money, with the key treasurer working on different types of diplomatic sanctions and import, export, all about money there. Navy and the troops and infantry, that military is definitely going to be costly for sure. So how can they use that to not run the urns dry and not deplete the treasury? Well, they can use that as a way of making money. And one of the ways they could do that is by sellswords. They are for hire, which could make a lot of sense from the Third Age, when the party kind of set themselves up as a mercenary kingdom. So it could follow through with the breadcrumbs that have already been laid out by previous parties. Foods, of course, the lands are pretty rough, so growing crops and everything is going to be a little more challenging. So how can they maximize their food crops so that, one, the people don't go hungry and can still pay their taxes, but two, how can they use that to export or gain some type of money coming in? And then religion, how can they base religions to also bring in money to the temples, to the state, basically. And you have to decide, are those religious elements separate from state? Are they part of the state? All things that we can flesh out depending on how we build this area out. So that is the aspect of our political domain, and we know that that gives us an opportunity to run charismatic characters with some political intrigue. It's a different type of genre rather than just hack and slash. It allows us to be able to tie in some kind of morally relevant pieces for our characters to have to navigate through. Are they going to side with the counselors pushing for a joint? Are they going to try to dissuade the Duke and the Duchess from working together with a group of counselors? Are they going to back one over the other? Who knows? Those are some of the things we can explore in our story. One of the biggest elements that we need to explore, though, is the reason the Duke and the Duchess and a couple of other NPCs call the players to help is because there have been trouble with their military, let's say. So the first kind of adventure is set around exploring a citadel. And this citadel is actually a pretty old and powerful part of their military. The military had acquired something and brought it to their citadel to study. And their citadel is basically just a very large keep. And so the adventurers, their first task from the Duke and the Duchess and the other two NPCs is going to be, one, retrieving the item and seeing if they can figure out what's gone on. So that is the very starting point. After we get the group together, the first thing they're going to be tasked with is exploring this citadel. That's already kind of written. We'll fine-tune that a little bit and do some map making on this channel, but that's kind of the first part. So I'm going to tie that right back into the infantry. So with this citadel, I'm actually using a previous location. Again, one of the things I like to do is recycle as much as possible. As many times as I can recycle something, it's things that I have familiarity with and oftentimes already have some type of elements that I can tie into my storytelling and allow different characters to explore it over time or after time or even with some tweaks and changes. So the Citadel is part of the, so initially the party of characters that kind of took over this area on the map in the Earth, when they first came into power and started establishing themselves as ruling class citizens, they called themselves the Grey Wardens. And it's been used a lot in a lot of different games and genres. I don't know that I want to continue calling this kind of de facto faction the Grey Wardens. So I'm just going to pop that in parentheses. And this was the Grey Wardens Citadel of Stone is what it was initially called. Again, I don't know that I like that. The area itself is a pretty cool area, although I am going to redesign it and make it something even better than it was in 3rd edition, because again, time has gone on, and when we left it, there was a whole nother age in between there. This was something that was pretty far inland in the mountains, so it would have survived a lot of challenges from the destruction of the 4th age, bringing us into the 5th age. So again, using elements that I know of the area is helping expedite this whole process. But real quick, I want to start and just start bringing some things in so I can start firming them up and building upon them. So instead of the Grey Wardens, the kind of militaristic area that's more inland, they really watch more for everything going on in the boundaries of the continent. They're not as concerned with the outer areas, the waters and everything. That's left up to the Navy, though in this campaign we'll probably combine them, but I do want to have them kind of separate. And these Grey Wardens were basically kind of the elite and purposefully trained by the PCs in previous games. So it's going to be something that's going to be more storied and more kind of traditionalist, even though those traditions are now archaic and just not really recognized. This is something that if you're from the outside, you would think, man, this stuff is quaint. These people are doing things that nobody nowadays does. These are people who are not with the times. So I want that feel to this kind of the Grey Wardens, what we'll have replace the Grey Wardens. So I want to go back to the land. It's broken, it's volcanic, it is very gray, which is kind of how they got it. How they got the name of the Grey Wardens is because all of the gray granite. But let's go with well, we may have to come back to that because off the top of my head I'm not coming up with anything. Sometimes I got to think about it a little bit. Oh, you know what I do actually have is a little bit on my Pinterest board that can help me get some inspiration. So let's see here. I have got a couple of pinned themes that just have some visuals for me to kind of go off of. So I am going to go with, see if anything here really sparks my imagination. How about we go with so in this area, one of the things that they faced a lot was the basilisks. In the 3rd age, the basilisks were a huge threat that the party had to deal with. So let's go with the basilisk. I don't know. We'll come back to it. I can't just off the cuff sometimes come up with things. But I do like tying back in the basilisks because that was a huge threat. And then the Citadel of Stone, it isn't too bad, but maybe we'll call that the Citadel of Time because it has stood the test of time. Now again, as we're looking at this part here, the Citadel itself is going to be an area of exploration. The younger recruits, newer recruits, and those serving on the council and their, kind of entourage are going to be members of the basilisk group, we'll call it for right now, and they want to know the answers that of what happened at the Citadel of Time. So we know already that tradition, and I'm going to put antiquated, is important. And part of that is a little bit of formality. We know oftentimes people who are traditionalists and really focus on formality, they can tend to be very easily offended. So it could be very good for an NPC to advise the party to kind of watch their P's and Q's, to honor it. Now, you may have party members, players in particular, who are not interested in following along with that narrative, giving the PCs or the NPCs the honor of honoring their traditions and everything. So always start to think, what are consequences if they don't? Because if, for instance, you're traveling abroad and you go to a different country and they are having let's just say, a military parade. The one thing as an outsider you don't want to do is offend any aspect of that. You should, as an outsider, honor and respect those different people's traditions, even if you don't agree with them, even if you're not for it, even if you're, anti-military. But you should still provide enough respect for others and yourself that you at least stay silent, keep your mouth shut, and don't make a spectacle of yourself. You want to honor others' traditions, especially when, like I said, you're traveling abroad and in a different country with different people. So you have to start thinking, if you don't, what's the consequences? I mean, initially you'll have to argue the Duke and the Duchess and a couple of other NPCs have come and gathered up a group of heroes to help them, and now they're expecting this group of heroes to honor their traditions. What happens if they don't? It could be something as benign as you just let it go and the players kind of get the run of everything. But it could be something where they get expelled from the country. I mean, think about just in kind of recent history, right? There was an athlete who went to Australia and didn't play by the rules, and I believe they ended up getting deported. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they changed it at the last moment. I don't remember. I didn't follow the story to its conclusion, but I remember a big topic of the story was this athlete who went to compete and didn't follow every protocol, was slotted to be deported, even though they're an honored, well-known, almost celebrity status athlete who was there to compete. The country had no qualms about that. That's fine. We don't need you. Go ahead. You're not going to follow the procedures. You're going to get deported, kind of deal. Now, it doesn't help keep your game going if you do that, but if you don't set consequences and you don't have some type of, plan of what to do if you're setting some of these bones down, are you really enjoying your game, or are you going to enjoy it? So don't hesitate to set some rules. So we will put here that if offended, the military is going to pull all support and attempt to deport. Now, that may sound pretty harsh, but you also have to think you've got other counselors up here who may use that to their advantage. If you've got players who are looking at that charisma type piece, right, here is a great opportunity for you to weave in some of this political intrigue. Maybe while the military is offended and they want to get these people deported, what if the religious people think, haha, that's pretty dang good. Let's keep them on for something else and push at the military people who are now offended by these people because it could shift the power in our place. Thinking at this level of detail for your games is not required for everything, right? If you're doing a one-shot and it's a holiday-themed one-shot, you don't have to get down to this level. It's designed for just one session play. But for me, I'm looking more at stories that I can explore with the players, building stories together. And for me to allow them to add their character stories into this tapestry of a collective storytelling piece, I have to give them the foundation that they can build stories upon. So this level of detail is very, very good for me to be able to accomplish that goal. And as a GM, I really enjoy this type of play. So for me, this is an important aspect of my gameplay. This prep work takes time, it takes imagination, it takes creativity, it takes thought, research, and it can be exhausting. But already we've got, just for charismatic characters, a lot of opportunity for some awesome storytelling, all because we just added a couple of notes of the people at the top. And again, this is super scalable. If you're working on a first level adventure, let's say, when the party first rolls into town, having some details about the mayor or the governor, the city council, maybe it's just a guild, how they interact with each other, what are they looking for, how can they, really show what they're about, who they are, and what kind of things they have as expectations for the adventurers, for the characters, is going to help you tell better stories and have more stories to tell. That's the most exciting thing. From this here, we know initially exploring a citadel is the adventure we're going to set, but look at all the other possible storytelling adventures we could already do. It's just insane how this amount of prep work can be so beneficial to telling more stories. And all of this is based off of what I had done before. You could pull the same type of information off a different story, off published materials, off something you've done before, off something you've seen on TV or a movie, and just tweak it a little bit, make it fit your story, and you're going to be gold. Now that I've already started this bit here, I do want to flesh out a little bit more. Because we started with exploring a citadel, we know that's going to be the most important thing. And it's going to be really led by the Basilisk group. We're just calling them that for now. I will come up with something better. Who knows, maybe we'll stick with the Grey Wardens. I don't know yet. But we've already got a good idea of the kind of military workings, because that's where the characters are going to be kind of targeted first. They're going to be aimed at a military complex first. So knowing a little bit about them, their traditions, that they're antiquated, formality, they're easily offended, that they've got very quaint types of traditional processes and procedures. So we've already got some good information about the military aspect of it. And maybe it's very different for the Navy aspect of it, where if we had something that we want the people to explore along the coast, we could have it completely different to where they are more like surfers. And as long as you honor their, tribal mentality, and you can break the waves with them and you're not afraid to get out there and try, and you can party well, you're going to be accepted right in there. But if you're an anti-partier and they got no place for you, they're going to absolutely steer clear of you and make sure that you're hitting those waves all by yourself, and they're not going to give you a moment's notice or a tip to help you get better waves, so to say. So already thinking about different aspects we can add to the military as well, should we need to. Which I'm not exploring that right now, just because we're really focused on the Citadel as a first piece. Now I did like, if the military gets offended and attempts to deport the characters, do we have something else that we can kind of keep that story going in? You know, we talked about maybe the religious people would find opportunity to then weave some power into their play. And so we can start to explore the religious aspect of the islands a little bit. And again, we're not going super deep in any of this. So for the religious aspects, again, there will be aspects of this later in my campaign. There is 2 parts that are going to really rely on the religious aspects of the area. So thinking a little bit about that now is going to help me in the long run. So the first thing we need to think about is, what is the pantheons there? And for me, I don't like to, really narrow things down. If my characters want to worship Helm and another wants to worship Thor, great, I'm all for it. I have no qualms. People can have their characters worship whoever they want to have worship. I'm not going to dictate that to them and say who they can and can't, because I run an open world campaign. But on this set area, because of the challenges they've had with previous adventuring parties, right, who came in and basically took over and subjugated everybody, and the upheaval after the 3rd age into the 4th and then into the 5th. So remember, they've gone through 2 dynamic shifts of ages that are world changing. What would their religions look like after that? Maybe they were absolutely subjugated to have these outside religions crammed down their throats, right? So I'm going to write 3rd age religion was, let's say, mandated. And dissenters were brutally punished. Because in that campaign setting, anybody who didn't agree with the party, they were pretty much brutally punished. It didn't matter what the subject was. It wasn't just for religion. Religion actually was not much of an aspect of that campaign, but I'm just thinking about the aspects that that party brought to this region. What were other impacts that we didn't touch on that we could weave into our story? So with religious aspects of it, the 3rd age religion was mandated and dissenters were brutally punished. Tempest, we'll put Tempest gods were considered saviors. At the end of 3rd. And then the 4th, they still worshipped the Tempest gods and had that kind of as the let's say the national or regional focus, but with the 4th, they thought they were being punished as well. So now, Tempest gods, widely celebrated. respected and worshipped. And we'll say that this is a very important aspect to the people. Worship is an important aspect to these people. Now that's something we can start putting some good story elements in. We should start thinking about, because it's important, we should start thinking about holy days and celebrations and what would the populace be doing at certain times for tempest gods. Now an easy way to do this is just to go to your deities and demigods sources, right? And look up the gods of tempest, pick out the ones that fit your campaign the best, start putting those in, looking up what do they consider religious holidays. What do the celebrations for these gods look like or contain? If you can't find information, make it up. Don't hesitate. And then know that it's going to be important to the people. And again, we have to think, are the characters expected to be participating? No, they're outsiders. It's okay. But you have to honor our religions, and you can't force yours on us, kind of deal. So it could be a stalemate type of peace. But religious aspects for these people is going to be an important piece, and we should weave that into our storytelling, which gives us some opportunities for the religious elements to play a little bit against the militaristic elements. The religious people could be saying that what happened to the military is because they didn't honor the gods, they were not taking the gods seriously, whatever. Really, they're trying to wrestle some more power for the religious elements, the religious leaders, the temples, right? I want everything kind of to go back to money as an aspect of this game. I want everything to be driven by the almighty gold piece, because at this point, gold for the characters who are going to be at 10th level when they start this campaign, they should have quite a bit of wealth, and I don't want them to be after wealth without some type of a consequence. This is a good campaign. I want them to be altruistic, I would say. So I want to show kind of the evils of money. That's what I'm doing as a GM, is that's one of the themes, is the evils of money and how it's driving a lot of the things that are going on. But for religion, now we already know that on the council there is some type of a high priest or a bishop, basically we'll just call it a cult leader with a question mark, because ultimately they're being driven by the buck. And that's what I want to really convey. They're being driven by the buck. So money is going to be an important aspect of that as well. So already, I know we've already gone through a lot. We've used about 3/4 of the time that we have for tonight's schedule, but look at all the details we've already got on this location. We'll spend a little bit just kind of polishing up a little bit more, but of our 5 counselors, we already know quite a bit about 2 of them. Even though we haven't gotten them names, we've gotten ideas about who they are as an organization and as a people by just exploring a little bit of details, pulling some information off the past, and just being creative with it. Our Duchess and the Duke, now those 2 I already have all the details and information on, along with 2 NPCs. We're going to be starting aspects. And we're not going to touch on those ones until we get further down this rabbit hole of creation. But looking at the counselors, we're starting to get more meat on the bones for these ones. And again, these are aspects that may not come up in a very big way, We want to start with where it's going to impact and then where it could go. So exploring the Citadel, we know the military is going to be an important aspect. If the players offend the military, we're going to move right into the religious aspects of it. Now, that's the second one. I mentioned before that there were two kind of elements that are going to come up in play on this story. So the first element is going to be an ancient temple secret. So one of the areas that the players will have to kind of investigate and explore and adventure is an ancient temple's secrets. Now this is important in also, it's identical basically to exploring the Citadel. It's just this is a temple element of it. And then the second one, which is actually a bigger part of it, is the twist of faith. Now this campaign, because it's designed for 10th to 15th level, and then also kind of bridges to the 15th to 20th, and between a couple of campaigns. The twist of faith on this one here is important. At this tier of play, your character should not just be working to help or explore or adventure through a region, a continent, an area. The things they should be working on should be kind of earth-shattering. At this level of play, they should be saving the world, not just the country, the world. So part of the story, there is a threat that is going to impact the entire world if the players don't get to the bottom of it and resolve it. Part of that conflict is all based on a twist of faith. In the current campaign that the players that are going to go through this are in, they had 3 routes that they could explore kind of as characters. They could go after demons and devils. They could go after undead and liches, or they could go after beasts, primarily dragons. So my players chose the dragons. So this story is following up because they did not explore the demons and devils element. This is going to kind of show them what they missed. Even though that thread will be resolved in this campaign via NPCs, the elements they missed are important to the world. Just like had they explored that, now the dragons would have had a bigger impact via Tiamat. But this is just a tweak on it, so there is a big twist of faith. And the faith is going to play a big role in this because of demons and devils. And we already know we've got Tempest gods. We know there are going to be demons and devils. And kind of the bridging of those two is going to be super important. So with this one here, we're going to follow the Citadel. And the cool part about this is on this ancient temple. So this is actually going to be based on a temple that one of my player characters wanted to build in 3rd edition when we played in this area before. I still have a rough map of what they wanted to build because they were playing a cleric, believe it or not, even though they were playing pretty much an evil cleric. They wanted to build this temple, and I've got that map that I'm going to reintroduce as this ancient temple that the religious leadership, right, is going to want explored. Now, if they offend the military leader, they can immediately move right into this aspect. So we're not stopping the door if they don't play nice with the military leaders and the nobles, right? We're not closing the door. We're just opening another door and having another avenue. That we've already worked on a little bit. This was already going to be part of the story. We're just looking at, if they slam door 1, what's door 2? Now, if they slam door 2, are we going to have a door 3? We certainly can, because we've got a lot of political intrigue that we can play off of. Could be the diplomacy aspect of it. Could be those who are looking to grow and raise crops. It could be the tax collectors. So we've got other avenues that we can explore. Probably get into that a little bit next week. As we flesh out these first 2, we'll add a little bit more detail on there, because I have not worked on these elements yet. Aside from the Duchess, the Duke, and 2 other NPCs, I have not explored anything else on this aspect. And we'll get into those characters, like I said, when we drill in a little bit. We're just setting the stage, we're putting the decorations up, we're building the elements out, so that when we go to introduce the story, in my mind, this is going to be very familiar. I'm going to be very versed with what's going on, who the major players are, and what aspects are going to be both asked of the PCs, and what are going to be the repercussions based on how those PCs interact with the ask on those PCs. So it's going to allow me to be very familiar with the location, so I'm confident in my delivery of setting the stage and kind of really guiding the players to what their characters are going to be seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, the feel of the salt air or the dry volcanic area air. And with that, I can better set them up to integrate their characters into the game world and really dive in and immerse themselves in the gameplay at the table. And that's what exploring the journey is all about. How can we better explore RPGs from a GM's perspective for our player characters to help us tell great stories around the table. I know I went all over the place tonight, but I feel very good about what we've got worked on so far for this area. Again, super scalable. We're looking here at continent building stuff, but a town, a temple, an urban setting, a world setting, it all works the same. If you think about the elements that are going to be most important to set up your game, to hook your characters into the game, and to have a backup plan, you're going to better serve your players just by spending that bit of time thinking about it, prepping it up, taking some notes. Again, regardless if you do this digital, if you do it on pen and paper, if you do it on pencil and paper, however you do it, you're going to better serve your players by taking those steps. Now, before we go, I do want to circle back. If you're watching this VOD on demand, we do have some changes to our schedule that just went into effect this last week. And the biggest call out is we moved our time slots from 8 p.m. Central Standard Time to 6:30 Central Standard Time. There were a lot of scheduling challenges that we had to overcome. So by readjusting our schedule, we hope to be able to better service the community and be able to have a lot better content in timely manners for everybody who's interested. With that being said, we are looking to grow. So hit that follow. We want to reach more people. We're not asking for subscriptions. We just want to grow our followers so that we can reach more people and hopefully provide more insight, opportunity, discussion, support, ideas, and creativity to more people. So be sure to follow us. Also, check out all of our socials. We try to put out good quality content regularly. So if you are looking for a community to support, we hope that you select us to provide that support with. With that support, of course, you get our gratitude, any type of opportunity that we can to provide upgrades, answer questions, and communicate with the community is very important to us. So send us questions, comments, concerns, anything that you're struggling with. We love to discuss and help, and we look forward to continuing to service the community. Just to run through our schedule, Mondays, of course, is the journey, where we're going to be exploring all different types of setup, game world building, exploring, all of that. No streaming on Tuesdays. Wednesdays is inspiration. So we're going to take a mini and we're going to build either a character or a monster based off of a miniature. So rather than coming up with a concept and building a character and then doing a big search and spending a ton of money to create a miniature that suits the character we've built, we're flipping that on its head. We're going to find a very awesome, cool miniature, and we're going to build off of that miniature. So it's a fun show. I hope you watch it and enjoy it. Thursdays, no stream. Fridays, we are doing our reviews. So we called the show Pursuing a Passion. Tammy joins me here in the studio, and we review products, sites, services, anything that's game related. We've got a couple of exciting ones coming up, so be sure to tune in Fridays for Pursuing a Passion. Saturdays, we're just in the studio at noon, painting, live, just open discussion, open comments, open everything, just in the studio doing some miniature painting. And then Sundays, we do just a review of the week, what's happened in the community, what's happened on the channel, what's coming up. So be sure to join us. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Hope it was helpful, insightful, and driven some creativity in you. Until next time, have a fantastic night.